Once upon a time on YouTube, two individuals doing a review of a Quentin Tarantino movie. That's actually a lot of individuals on YouTube doing that, not just us.
Yeah, I have a feeling that this is actually like a subculture of YouTube at this point, is everyone talking about movies.
Yeah, and we're pretty low on the totem pole still.
Yeah, well, whatever.
What's going on, guys? We're the Cinefanatics. My name is Chris Adams.
And I'm Robert Adams.
And today we are bringing you a review of Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So, the story of this movie is, yes.
Pretty much.
There's random happenings around these two guys. It's Rick Dalton, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and Cliff Booth, his stuntman, played by Brad Pitt. So Rick Dalton's an actor. He's got his stuntman. They're best buds, do everything together pretty much. Meanwhile, Sharon Tate's floating around somewhere.
Doing stuff.
With Roman Polanski, and that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's about the gist of the movie, really. Spoilers.
Yeah. So kind of like a lot of Tarantino's other movies, it's kind of it's a non-linear, but it is still kind of linear. There's a couple like jumps arounds in times and stuff like that, but like it doesn't just stay on one image or set piece for a while. It moves to others and bounces back. So you could expect that. I mean, we kind of were anyways going into this, knowing that it's Tarantino.
Mm-hmm. So part of what I want to discuss here is there's going to be a little bit talking about the actual like spoilers of the movie, what happens at the end, all this kind of stuff. I'll do that on the back end. You'll have plenty of warning before I get there. The rest of the review is going to remain spoiler free, so hang out with us for this. Come back later and watch the back end once we give you the warning and everything. So yeah, this movie though we got to start off the top. It's really long.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my biggest gripe against it. It's just super long.
I mean, there is a story, basically, like we were talking about, that Rick Dalton used to be a popular TV show actor, and then he left the TV show. The TV show got canceled. He went and did a couple of movies, and he's not quite getting the acclaim he had on TV.
His star power's fading.
It's official, old buddy. Well, has been.
So movies really aren't helping him too much, and he's trying to build up his career, and he's kind of having like an existential crisis about it,
falling into a depression.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, his buddy Cliff is there with him throughout everything, being patient with him, hanging out with him, doing the stuff that he needs done around the house, driving him everywhere.
Quite possibly the best friend in the world type of.
Yeah, literally. Like I've never seen somebody in real life who's as good a friend as Cliff was to Rick in this movie. And I think that's the heart of the movie right here, is that it's these two guys as buddies. They are the driving force of the movie, their friendship, and what they're doing individually and how it affects, I guess, each other in the entirety of the scope of the film.
Which would be fun to point out that there's never been another movie where Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio have acted with each other.
Yeah.
Like
surprised.
And they do very well. They play off each other extremely well.
I think the fact that it's the two of them together and they're just good friends in the movie, I think that alone is worth the ticket price to see the film.
Yeah.
That being said, there are areas in the movie where I think they could have trimmed down a little bit of what's happening. There's some scenes that just run on just a little bit too long, and I think that's just that goes back to being Quentin Tarantino's style. He wants you to slow down, take in the landscape, take in what's happening in the scenes,
breathe in your life, basically.
Understand things from the character's perspective, what's happening in the scene. And so I can't fault him for that, because that's his vision for and direction. But for those of us who are just wanting to go see a movie, like Endgame was long, but didn't feel long. This one is long, and it definitely feels long in places.
Yeah, this was like a 3-hour-long movie.
Yeah.
So there was definitely some stretchy parts to it.
Stretchy.
Yeah. And then you got Sharon Tate, who basically she lives next door to Rick Dalton with Roman Polanski. If you know anything about the history of Hollywood in the late 60s, then you kind of have an idea of like where this fits into Hollywood's history. And you'll know... Nice. Yeah, I know. Nice comparison there. And like you get an idea of like what direction this movie could potentially be going. There is, have you seen in the trailers, you've probably read about it, there is the mentioning of Charles Manson and his family. They do have something to do with this movie, so that is in there to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, you see a brief glimpse of him in the trailer. You see a brief glimpse of him in the movie. Moving on. Yeah, so there's a lot to...
Well, you don't want to talk about Charles Manson in our videos more?
Never.
Oh, okay.
Not at all, actually. But there's a lot to do with the compound, the cult, the family, and the role that they have. And you kind of see that infused a little bit with Brad Pitt's character arc and Cliff Booth's character arc and what he's doing, where he's going, kind of the craziness that he runs into.
It really is. It goes back to, like we were talking about, Tarantino does a lot of times in his movies these like little slice of life type of thing.
Yeah.
Just, it's nothing too spectacular. It just happens to be the cameras were rolling on this particular day and time in this person's life, and that's what it is.
Kind of.
And that's what I feel like a lot of this was for a lot of the characters.
On the flip side, though, I do feel like this movie is, in ways that I would say La La Land isn't, it's a love letter to Hollywood, to classic Hollywood filmmaking. You get a lot of inside baseball to a degree with this film. You see the inner goings of a production with Rick being on his TV sets and everything. Kind of all the inner workings of producers, actors, all that. Some jargon here and there about how they do stuff. It's for people who enjoy Hollywood, who really enjoy movies. It's actually kind of a fascinating take, seeing kind of all this stuff play out and how Tarantino lets it sit on just a scene within the movie in a TV show playing out, including where it has to start and stop every now and then because an actor forgets a line or something.
Line?
I thought that was really fascinating. I think those are the pieces that really moved the movie along for me because I was just engrossed and fascinated with those aspects. Others though, I don't know. Just some parts though, that's my biggest gripe is how slow the movie felt at times.
Yeah. Tarantino is known for being very dialogue heavy, and this movie is
dialogue heavy.
Right in that same vein. So the nice thing about that is if you stop and just listen to what's being discussed, there's a lot of subtle nuance in the words that are used, the way they're said. Brad Pitt does it in this movie a couple of times. He did it very well in Inglourious Basterds. The way that he would convey the tone with how they talk and stuff. Just
Buongiorno.
The way that the words are spoken. It sounds kind of really weird to say, but that is one of the major things behind a Tarantino movie is just listen to the movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's big on dialogue, and the other big aspect that he's really good at as a director is the character work. And that's one of my favorite things about this movie is I think this movie had fantastic character work. The more I thought about it after seeing it, the more I sat on it and just processed it. And it's the character work between Rick and Cliff, not so much Sharon, because honestly she really didn't have a whole lot to do in the movie other than kind of show Sharon Tate's personality and how fun and just lively she was. They did a good job about that and respecting who she was and her life. But the character work, the story arcs with Rick and Cliff and what they went through and everything in this movie, I thought was fantastic. And I want to touch a little bit on that on the back end, so we'll get there in a second.
Yeah. Otherwise, I mean, there was a powerhouse of actors in this movie. Other than the ones that we've already mentioned, I'm going to touch upon Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate. She did a phenomenal job. There's just too many other actors in this list.
Bunch of cameos.
It's pretty much like a who's who of who all in Hollywood right now is in this movie.
Playing a who's who of who all was in Hollywood in the 1960s.
That time, yeah. So I mean, you've seen a bunch of them in the trailers. Shout out goes to the Bruce Lee.
Yeah,
that was hilarious.
That was a funny scene.
That whole scene with him was great.
And then I had to drop the Steve McQueen. The Steve McQueen casting was just blew us away.
Yeah, for a second there, I was like, did they digitally recreate Steve McQueen? Because he looked exactly like him.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to find out it was, I guess, just makeup and lighting. And
Yeah.
like, he
That's it.
looked phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
The other thing that was really great was this movie had its like Forrest Gump moments where you would go back and basically not superimpose, but you would see like Leonardo DiCaprio is in an old TV show of some sort, and they would actually put him in there like you had Forrest Gump involved in like places in history.
They put him in a scene of The Great Escape.
Yeah.
From like, instead of Steve McQueen, talking about Steve McQueen, there is a bit of a comparison between him and Steve McQueen in this movie, and they do like little clips where he's in The Great Escape instead of Steve McQueen, and
it's just it's fantastic because he looked like he fit right in there. Like they dropped him right in the middle of like a movie, TV show, or whatever from 60s and 70s.
Mm-hmm.
It was. I thought they played it out perfectly. Like the technology was perfect for that. Gosh. I don't know if there's anything else to really say on the spoiler-free side. You got anything else?
No, actors. Oh, music.
Yeah.
Tarantino is phenomenal at his choice of music.
Yeah.
The song that was used in the trailer was also used in the movie, and we've had it in our heads. Probably still.
It's
still in there.
Yeah, it's still stuck there.
So his choice of music that he used throughout this movie, it helps with like setting the tone, the pace, the location, the timeline. Just excellent use of music, as always, by Tarantino.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree with that. All right, so this next part, as we get into it, is going to have some spoilers in it. So if you haven't seen the movie, this is a time where you want to kind of click away and come back later after you've seen it, because I'm going to talk about some character stuff, talk about some stuff that you're going to want to see play out on the big screen before you actually hear us talk about it.
And talk about that crazy, insane ending that is Tarantino is known for.
Yep, we're gonna talk about that too. But we are gonna drop a time code below, or click on whatever time. I don't know how you're gonna edit it.
So if you haven't seen it, you can click those and just skip straight to our ratings of this movie.
Yeah, there's gonna be a spoiler-free section at the ending where we give the rating and everything. That'll be fine for you to watch too.
And then go see the movie, come back and hear our thoughts in the spoiler section of this.
Yep. So this is your warning. Spoilers.
Spoilers are a-coming.
And you're still here. Cool. So, big piece I was talking about was the character arcs. Rick's major character arc, his character arc throughout the film is, as he's suffering through the depression and everything, he is not feeling recognized as an actor, this, that, and the other. He talks earlier in the film about living next door to Roman Polanski and how cool that is, but you never see an interaction between them or him and Sharon Tate throughout the entire film.
He actually says at one point that he's like, since he's living next door to him, he's like one pool party away from being like a leading man in a Roman Polanski movie.
Yeah, exactly.
And it never happens.
Yeah, he doesn't actually interact with her until the end, and then after the madness ensues, there is a brief moment where Jay Sebring is hanging out at the gate going, what happened? And Rick's telling him what happened, and then Sharon clicks on the intercom and is like, oh, is that my next door neighbor, Rick Dalton? And he's like, wait, Sharon Tate recognized me?
Yeah.
She knew who I was? Like, come on up, come hang out with us.
Like, finally.
Okay.
After a 3-hour-long movie.
And I actually really loved that moment in the movie because I felt like it brought some closure and brought some like peace and happiness to Rick's character. Mm-hmm. Because in your mind, you knew after that his career was going to be okay because he's made connections with people who are going to be able to put him into some solid movies coming up. And that I really loved that aspect. On the flip side, you have Cliff and his story in regards to like the Manson family and everything when he was on the ranch and he had like that face off with Tex. Not really on the ranch, but he met him on the ranch, and then
The madness later
when he shows back up and he just brutally beats the mess out of them, which that scene was hilarious. It was a lot tamer than I thought it was going to be, but it was hilarious. Because, I mean, you're seeing him, he throws the dog food can at the girl's face, and then he's throwing the other girl around the house, beating her into things. The dog eats the dude, and then the one girl runs out into the pool where Rick is just hanging out.
And then Rick turns around and pulls out a flamethrower. He pulls out a flamethrower. He pulls out a mother flamethrower.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it makes sense. It's Tarantino.
Sure.
So,
It's a throwback to a movie scene that he did earlier in the film.
yeah, which was fantastic. I think what was great is sitting in the theater when this scene starts playing, and then you just hear like everyone is like, okay, now we've all sat through this movie. Like we said before, it was kind of slow on the build up and everything, just dialogue heavy. Now we're getting to some actual action, what you know Tarantino to do. And just, you hear everyone in the theater is on. They're all focused. They're paying attention. They're laughing. They're enjoying it. And it was just a great scene. I think it was a great cap to this movie.
Yeah. It played out so well. There was a huge payoff there. If you stuck with the movie all the way through, followed the character arcs, and then you get to the very end where just the madness ensues. That was probably one of the best payoffs I think for this movie could have had.
Mm-hmm. Especially because this is, again, like Inglourious Basterds, it's changing history. So the thing is with Inglourious Basterds is that you know that Hitler in real life did not get shot by underground spy mission to assassinate him in a theater.
Yeah.
There was no Operation Kino. None of that happened. So kind of like this, the real storyline of what was supposed to happen is the members from the Manson family were supposed to go and murder Sharon Tate, raid her and Roman Polanski's house.
Basically because Charles Manson was supposed to have like a record deal or something with Terry, and that was his house, and now so he's just like, send someone out there and kill whoever's in Terry's house.
Yeah. So that's what was supposed to happen, but due to Rick Dalton interfering
With his margarita.
that was so funny. Now all of a sudden, these members of the Manson family are attacking Rick Dalton's house instead of Polanski's, and therefore saving Sharon from history.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm talking about with like some of the great things that happened in character work also, is because you saw the scene with Cliff and Bruce Lee earlier, and now you're seeing the payoff to the fact that this dude was beating up Bruce Lee, which makes no sense. That wouldn't have happened. But you're seeing the payoff later, like, okay, now it makes sense why he's brutally beating these three Manson murderer people in the house. Like, the payoff there's just so many things between that and then the acid cigarette he'd had before then, the commands he gives his dog, like all of that just kind of came together there.
So you brought up the acid cigarette, and that reminded me of something I was thinking during the movie. Like, what is a better like tripping out scene? Him with the acid cigarette, or Leonardo DiCaprio tripping off the extremely old and expired Quaaludes from Wolf of Wall Street? Because both of those were phenomenal. Just the way their characters were acting during that was so great.
Yeah.
I think DiCaprio's got the lead on that one, though. The Brad Pitt one was good, but...
Yeah. All right, so as we wrap up our final thoughts, and if you were joining us for the spoiler-free part, welcome back to another spoiler-free section. So overall, I think, again, my biggest thing is that it was slow, but I think the character work justified the pace of the movie. Getting to know them, and then just how it pays off in the ending, all of that justifies the pace of the movie. So,
and something we didn't mention earlier about the characters and in regards to the pacing is, by the end of the movie, I really do feel like Rick Dalton was a person, not a character. Rick Dalton, Cliff Booth, these are actual people, and we just saw like a documentary kind of sort of on like a moment of their life. Not that they were Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt.
And that goes back to Tarantino's ability to fuse the real world with a fake world and be able to just make it seamless. Mm-hmm. Because there was a bunch of people in this movie who were real people, and then there was a few people who weren't real people. It was great. But I would say I'd have to give this one... Honestly, the more I think about it, I think the higher the rating goes, despite the pacing. I still think I would give it probably about 4 out of 5 little Hollywood stars.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was thinking as well. It's just for the pacing was slow, and after you've been working all day, it's kind of a hard movie to sit down and watch.
Yeah, don't go see it late at night.
Yeah, but definitely is a movie I feel like needs to be revisited. Potentially like more maybe like during the day when you're awake and you can focus a little bit better. And I want to go watch it anyways again just because I know there was bits and pieces of dialogue that even though I'm aware of Tarantino and his dialogue fetish and feet fetish.
Oh, not
which
touching
was,
that.
Yeah. Anyways, that I missed maybe some things that were said and mentioned that I think kind of would have heightened, if that's a word.
Enheightened. It's
Would
a
have
word now.
heightened the experience of this movie. So
Yeah, so I mean that's the thing. If you're a fan of Hollywood, fan of Hollywood's history, or just a fan of like good character work, fan of Tarantino, go see it in the theater. It's worth going and check out the theater. So if you're a fan of those old prints, what is it, the 35 millimeter showings? Yeah, you're gonna want to go check those out too.
yeah, I know the Alamo Drafthouse here in Austin have been doing 35 millimeter showings. So if you could see that, this movie would be phenomenal in that.
Yeah. So let us know what you thought. Did you see the movie already? You probably watched the spoiler section if you did. Either way, let us know what you think, what you thought about the movie, whether you want to see it or not. Let us know in the comments below. And let us know what you thought about our review of it, too. We're always looking for feedback here. We'll take it good or bad. Please don't give us bad. But yeah, you can do what you want.
It's a free world.
Yeah. Give this video a like if you liked it. All the things. You know the drill.
If you didn't like this video,
I mean, do you think that God came down from heaven and stopped us?
so also above our heads there is a subscribe button. Make sure you hit that. Over here off to the side are a couple of other videos we have made, and as always,
Insert random Quentin Tarantino quote here.
I thought you were actually going to do that.
Yeah.
Later.
See ya. You know, you got your Path of the Righteous Man, Royale with Cheese.
I'm a direct descendant of the mountain man Jim Bridger.